Welcome to Whistleblowers in partnership with Wix Trade Pro.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Whistleblowers. I'm still in Ibiza, Mark's still in New York, and poor Ian is alone in the studio in London, just looking at his credit card statements, wondering where it all went wrong. And we know the answer to that. It was Hamley's, the Lego store, and the M&M store. I'm very impressed by Mark Clattenburg's dedication to charity, because he's been preparing for the Great North Run by drinking Guinness and coffee, but doing 20,000 steps a day to try and... Are you ready for the Great North Run, Mark?
Yeah, simple answer is no, but I'm gonna try me, because normally I keep saying to myself, look, the Great North Run's in 2-3 weeks, then it's like 10 days, 9 days. So now I've decided after this podcast, I am going to go into Central Park, which is quite iconic, do a little run and get myself finally prepared for the Great North Run. But later on, I'll have a Guinness.
Can I just make a point, Mark? I'm not an athlete. I think it's fair to say that, okay? But, like lots of middle-aged men desperately hanging on to trying to hang on to their youth. I have done a few of these things. And this is the time in your preparation when you're supposed to be winding down and resting your legs, okay? It's not the time when you're supposed to be winding up, all right? I know, but what you don't want is to get to the start line in Newcastle with tired legs. For God's sake, do not do too much running in America. It's not going to make a difference, mate. Just leave it.
I know it is. But when they said, Mark, will you love to do the Great North Run? I did it a few years ago when I was a referee, so it was easier because you had a level of fitness. Mm-hmm. And then they said to us this year, Mark, can you do the Great North Run? And I'm thinking, yeah, why not? Yeah, of course. And then reality kicks in and you're thinking, hold on, this is not the greatest idea in the world, but I'm going to do it for, Red Sky Foundation, who support adults and children who've got heart problems, and the support with life support care. So I'm doing it for a great cause. Hopefully people will support it and support us along the way. So any Geordies who are watching or anybody on TV, please support us, because I'll need your support, and because me to finish in one piece will be a great achievement.
You will get round. Yeah, I know you'll get round. You'll just get round. That's all that matters. Any finish is a good finish. That's what they say. Any finish is a good finish.
I used to watch the guy, because there's always guys in that are running, and they'll have 1:30 on the back. And I remember the first year I did it, the Pacers had 1:30, and I thought I'll keep up with him. I lost him. Then the 1:45 come, and I'm thinking I'll try and keep with him, but I'm hoping for the 2 to 2.5 hour guy to keep with this thing.
Fair play to you, Mark. If there's an equivalent in journalism, Ian, I don't know if ever you've had a deadline. I've written a couple of sports books. They normally sit behind Ian when he's doing the show from home. But I did Vinnie Jones' book, and I did Freddie Flintoff's, and I did this terrible thing where I'm like, if I just write 1,000 words a day over 80 days, we'll be absolutely laughing. And then 2 weeks in, you're like, if I just do 3,000 words a day, we'll be fine. And then with 2 weeks to go, you're like, I reckon I could manage 15,000 words in a day if I really got my head down.
Oh, I'm sure that Freddie Flintoff and Vinnie Jones would be delighted to hear that.
Yeah.
the fact you banged out their books in the half an hour after you've had your dinner a night before the deadline.
I wrote one of them in paternity leave. There you go. So
you know what? It is weird though in our trade, Gordon. I've always found this in our trade, that because you and I have both been, kind of daily journalists, to use old terms, daily journalists working for daily newspapers over the years. If I've got something to write that I know doesn't have to be in for a couple of weeks, I do find it quite hard. I'm much better when it's like, right, it's got to be written today. I do find it a lot harder to do the kind of long form stuff. Anyway, back to you, Mark. What do they say? Someone once said to me, start slow, finish fast. So all I'm going to say to you, do not get carried away. I know you're an emotional...
Are we talking about running in?
Yeah,
Are we talking about running?
No, Mrs. Ladyman.
No, the other thing, I'm just delighted to finish us all. What I was going to say to you...
And start.
Well, indeed, yeah. What I was going to say to you was, I know you're an excitable chap. You're an excitable chap. You're an emotional chap. It's why we love you. Don't get carried away at the start, okay? All right? You know what I mean?
No, I promised my daughter that I would, because remember the Mo Farah the moment where he's running at 24 kilometers an hour, he's reaching the Tyne Bridge in about 1 minute and a half. Yeah. I want to hit that first bloke that runs as fast as he can, so I'm leading the Great North.
You are going to be that bloke, aren't you?
Giving the other wave, yeah.
You are going to be the internet meme, you really are.
Yeah. And if you'd like to email us and tell us, or guess who it was that told Ian Ladyman to start slow and finish fast, we would love to hear from you. And on that point, actually, we have been asking for some comments on Instagram about if your enjoyment of the podcast or otherwise. So the negative response is Carl Howland, when's Lovejoy and the crew back?
I still get that.
They've got a new endeavour, don't worry about that. Linners 1989 just said, no, not enjoying it. Okay, but there's some good stuff. Kimmy says 100% yes. Stevie, great podcast. Love hearing the view from a referee side of things. And Troy Bevan definitely really helps with the loss of my mum. So Troy, thank you for that. And sorry to hear you're going through tough times. Okay, right. We've got a question from another listener to begin with before our new football from the inside out section. So Guy asks, we still spend all of our time talking about the so-called big six in the Premier League, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, Man City, Liverpool and Spurs. I guess my question is, does the big six even exist anymore? Good question, that. Thank you, Guy. What do you reckon, Mark? Because you've got a club that doesn't sit in the big six, but, you know, in terms of financial power and support, would you argue you're in there?
Is that what would declare the big six as? Because I don't know what is the big six anymore. You know, you look at Manchester United and Tottenham; they weren't in the top six last year. Are we looking at revenue? Are we looking at trophies won in the past? Or do we look at what the future has? You know, and I look at the top six sides at last season were Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, and Villa. If that was correct, yeah, that was the six. So they were the top six. Will Manchester United, Tottenham break into that top six this season? Highly likely, because Villa haven't really started particularly well. I think Newcastle will be round about thereabouts. You know, your prediction of Tottenham, Gordon, was a wild prediction. Everybody laughed. Not everybody's laughing at the moment, of course. So you must have knew something that we didn't know. But I don't get, and Ian might say it differently, I don't get what this top six is. But if you're saying on financial revenue, or we're talking about history, you know, Manchester United are certainly within that top six. But at the moment, based on performances, they're not in the top six. So
it's not official, right? But clubs in the group have typically accounted for at least half of the total annual revenue generated by Premier League clubs, and that's since 2004. So that's sort of unofficial qualification, Ian.
Yeah, so when I look at a game, such as Brighton against Manchester United, or Bournemouth against Liverpool, for example, or even Brentford now, say, against Arsenal, you look at those games and you think, well, we think that the established team will win that game, but we're no longer sure. And I love that about the modern Premier League, the fact that there's a little bit more jeopardy involved than there has been in recent seasons. So that's the first thing. However, when we talk about the big six, there are certain things, and Gordon, you've just pointed to some of it in terms of revenue. Let's talk a little bit. Let's use digital uptake as an example. Look at Mail Online. Okay, you run stories on Mail Online, or we run stories on Mail Online about Liverpool and about Manchester United and about Arsenal and about Chelsea, and they will still do massive numbers in terms of page views, etc. The eyeballs on those stories are still absolutely enormous when you compare them even to clubs like, even to a club, for example, like Aston Villa, okay? And that is the thing that we continue to wrestle with. And people say to us, why do you always focus on the big six? Well, in the modern world the modern digital world of where your readers, your viewers, your subscribers inform your decisions, they are still telling us through what they watch and read that it is about those big clubs. So we are still, at the moment, stuck in that holding pattern where those big clubs still do have an enormous influence over the way the Premier League is viewed and perceived.
Because it was the big five, wasn't it? You know, if you look at the 80s, Everton were in there and it's properly established in there as well. So things do evolve. But, I mean, we talked about Villa and Newcastle a little bit. But, Mark, do you think that top six, can you see that evolving, you know, to leave a club like Everton out in the future? Do you think a couple of them could drop out and Villa and Newcastle would replace them?
I wouldn't say it's difficult at the moment to say Newcastle or Villa can reach that level, because it's years and years and years away because of the way the Premier League is structured with the PSR rules and thing. I think, like Ian's touched on, you've got the two Manchester sides, you've got the London sides, you know, the three Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal. There, your three. Then you've got Liverpool. After that, you've got your noisy neighbours, Everton, for example, history-wise, but I don't think Everton can reach them levels and break that monopoly. And I don't think Newcastle can in the short term. Aston Villa won't. They'll come up. They'll reach, make Champions League one season. They'll not make it the next. They might make it in 4 or 5 more years' time. They'll be in and out. I think he makes a great point about the Premier League. And I think that's why we all love the Premier League. Everybody can beat each other. That's why it's so loved around the world, because it's so competitive. Nobody knows, teams can go to Ipswich last season and get beat. There's not that doesn't happen in Italy. That doesn't happen in Spain. The big sides win on a regular basis. It's only when they play each other that decides the title. The
financial rules are not helping. I think we can accept that. It's taken Manchester City more than 15 years to get where they are now. I've said before on the podcast about all of a sudden seeing Manchester City shirts being worn by kids from the south when I was on holiday in Centre Parks in Longleat. Okay, it's taken 15 years, but it's taken 15 years. The first half of that was almost, or the first third of that was almost unlimited, unregulated spending, and they got to where they want to be. For Newcastle, Villa, Everton, it's much harder because they can't. So it's no coincidence that Everton are now playing in a new stadium. It's no coincidence that Newcastle are talking about building a new stadium and that Villa are expanding their stadium. The only way they get to where Manchester City have got to is by making more money, first of all, and then spending more money and spending it well and then winning. Because as soon as you start to put trophies on your CV, on your sideboard, then you start to become, and that's what City have done. It's taken City a treble, endless Premier Leagues, FA Cups, League Cups to get them so they could now claim to be part of the Big Six where previously they weren't. It's going to take Newcastle, Villa, Everton a lot longer to do it because of the environment they now exist in.
So here's a question for you, and then so what is a young boy, and because you've got a young boy as well, what does a young boy follow? Do they follow the parents' teams? Or, like you've just said, Manchester United around the world are huge. Liverpool around the world are huge. I've saw countless number of Liverpool shirts. People wearing Liverpool shirts in New York.
Well, what do they follow? Do
they follow history? Are they following their parent? We can't be parents abroad, but what are the followers? Because they don't follow always results, do they?
What they're starting to follow? What they're starting to follow is names. They're starting to follow players. My daughter's 6. Okay, 6.5. She watches YouTube, and all of a sudden she started saying to me, "Daddy, have you seen Lionel Messi play? Have you seen Ronaldo play?" She's not talking to me about Barcelona, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Man United. She's talking because she's seen it on YouTube. Okay, she's talking about names. So that's something that clubs have also got to understand now as well, is that they've got to get, it's not an issue for players like Liverpool and Man United because they'll always have star names, but some of the smaller clubs, can we get, like, there was ridiculous talk, but it was mentioned about Mbappe and Newcastle. That's the driver, isn't it? Get a player like that into our club, then you get young guys onto our club.
Yeah, I think FIFA, the computer game as well, has totally changed the game. But it's also given my son's generation a little bit of acknowledgement for classics, I say classics, like legends of the game. Like Kenny Dalglish, my son is very familiar with because he has that iconic status on FIFA. So I love that. I think that's good that there's a bit of education built into it. But you're right. I mean, I think Cristiano Ronaldo changed that, I think, for a generation of young lads. They would follow him wherever he goes, which makes the Saudi purchase all the more interesting. Similar to Mark Clattenburg's move to the Middle East. I always find
and now you've just admitted that your son made your team, and that's why you won the poll, because of the players that you picked. Well, your son's team, not yours. Is that true?
He influences my decisions, shall we say.
I thought I was going to say that your son had obviously been listening to my team.
If Kenny wasn't listening to my team.
I had King Kenny on the right wing, of course.
There's a brilliant Gary Lineker story about that. I don't know if you've ever heard it, about him. I think his son George had a birthday party once, and they were all around watching a Man United game at the house, and Gary was behind the boys cooking or whatever, and he heard George Lineker say to his mates, "Wow, imagine your dad was David Beckham." He's like, "I've got 3 golden boots."
That's a rare moment of humility from gorgeous Gary there.
Gorgeous Gary. Right, if you want to get involved like Guy did with that brilliant question, please do. You can email us at whistleblowers, whistleblowers@dailymail.com, and all of our social accounts, X at BlowersPod, TikTok at Whistleblowers Podcast, Instagram at Whistleblowers.
Guys, can I throw a quick question in? Honestly, very quickly, I just want one thing. Just mention Lineker there. Have you had any eyes on the new match today? And I only ask you because it really struck me at the weekend when I watched Kelly Cates, who I think we all know is a brilliant broadcaster. Kelly did Saturday night, of course, Match Today. But then on Sunday, seeing her front and central for Sky from Craven Cottage, who were doing the Fulham Man United game, I thought that was interesting how whether that dilutes the Match of the Day brand a little bit, having one of their main presenters also a major host for Sky as well. It just made me wonder whether that was an issue or whether that's just me overthinking the whole thing.
I mean, that's an interesting point, right? Because speaking about this as somebody who's trying to earn a crust as a broadcaster, I think you often see those lists published in the Daily Mail of how much BBC staff are paid. But actually, you know, you've got to think of the going rate for that job and that role. And I think you can't just be BBC and work on one job alone there. I think, you know, for Kelly to keep her profile up, she has to, you know, she could conceivably disappear because there's so much competition for that job. So if she doesn't take those gigs and do those roles, she wouldn't have the Match of the Day gig. It's a really complicated.
No, but I would flip it and say from the BBC's point of view, given that the Match of the Day is a bespoke, iconic program, does it serve them to have one of their hosts also massively front and central on the front of Sky's coverage, whereby we know Lineker did other stuff, okay, but Gary Lineker, what does Gary Lineker do? He hosts Match Today. Everybody would say that. What's Gary Lineker do? He hosts Match Today. Can't say that now about Chappers and Gabby and Kelly Cates, and it just made me think. That was all. It was just a quick one. Just made me think. It's a good point.
It's a good point. I mean,
think about the modern era now, isn't it? Everything's for change. Everything's wanting change. They've got 3 presenters instead of 1. Yeah. You know, Kelly's worked. I remember working with Kelly, working for ESPN during the Euro after the COVID. You know, Kelly's does other things. I think it's a great thing that, you know, seeing the different styles, for example, how she presents for Match of the Day, how she presents for Sky. I think it's a completely different thing. What I was shocked at, and I used to think Match of the Day was hugely watched, and when I saw the viewing figures, I was quite disappointed. You know, was it was I right to say around the 2 million mark? I was shocked because I thought it would be a lot more.
But you know what, Mark? That's still a lot of people. All right, it's still a lot of people in the current age. It's a lot of people.
I get for live because but everybody I used to be pinned to watch Match Day. I don't watch it anymore because I can get, for example, the goals and the action on my Sky app. For example,
that's the argument. Yeah, that's the argument.
I think people are less and less watching it.
Yeah,
I just wish they'd leave a bloody bit of work for me. You know,
we'll always have work for you.
Yeah, we'll always have you on the podcast.
You have no choice in that, sadly.
If you ever come home from Ibiza, then. We'll have work for you.
I might not, actually. I think I might just stay here. Right, just to finish then, time for Football from the Inside Out, our newest segment, where we take a little peep behind the curtain and recount stories from our life and careers. Now, I'm in the hot seat today, and I believe Ian, you might have a question for me. Fire away.
Yeah, it's a personal one, really. I want to ask you about Hibernian and your affiliation with your football club, and I really want to know what it does for you. That affiliation, what it means to you, where it started, how it sits in your life, how would you feel about your life if you didn't have it, and all those kind of what I presume are quite emotional connections and connotations that brings.
It was such a special bit of nostalgia for me, the 90s, you know, like my big brother, right, is a Hibs fan. And it's a funny one because our dad's from Fife, right? And his team was East Fife, which isn't really going to get you that excited as young lads. But we were born in Edinburgh. So my brother decided that he would support the local team, which was Hibs. And I started going to him when I was probably 12, something like that. And it was great. We used to get the bus through to the games because we lived in Kinross, which is about 40 minutes away. And it was so exciting as a young lad going with my big brother on the bus to the games, the atmosphere, even things like, you know, the smell of Bovril and booze and fags, and getting a copy of the Pink after the game, which is something younger listeners will have no idea what I'm on about.
I delivered them. I used to deliver them.
Man, like getting the Pink and seeing it, you know, the your striker heading the ball in and reading the match report, it made me want to be a journalist, all of that stuff. But those experiences with my big brother, and also travelling all around the country as a teenager, like that spirit of adventure with the Hibs away support was fantastic. Going to grounds you'd never think of, like, Capello, when we got relegated for a season, around 2000, we had two fantastic players that Alec McLeish signed, and Frank Soze and Russell Latapi, and it was amazing to go and watch them. But then when I moved to London, my connection with Hibs was great, because when I came home, there'd be a real excitement about catching up with my club and seeing them again. And I was lucky in the 2000s, because we had a brilliant team of players that moved on, like Scott Brown, Kevin Thompson, Gary Caldwell, Gary O'Connor, Derek Riordan, like David Murphy, who went to Birmingham. We had a really good team around them. But then, you get them come back for quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, which was even more exciting. And then you have your own kids. So the connection I have with Hibs has got even deeper, because my son was 6 when we won the Scottish Cup after 114 years. And I was there with my big brother and my son, involved in a pitch invasion, which we can't really talk about. But, to have that bond together with your brother and your son, and to be around people that had been, I think one guy I was next had been to 23 finals and had only seen Hibs win 1 cup. So having those experiences, and even like there's a romanticism for me about Hibs, that being in a port in the north of the city, and it's got this amazing motto. I don't know if you know it, but it goes along the lines of, with our darkest days behind, our ship of hope will steer, and if in doubt, just keep in mind our motto, persevere. So the motto of Leith is perseverance, and that carries you through a little bit in your life. It's like, no matter how bad things are, like your football team, stick with it, persevere, dig in. And I think the connection with the Hibs fans I find quite funny as well. There's always funny songs. We've got a bit of personality. When your famous fans are people like Irvine Welsh, I think that's brilliant, so there's a real personality about the club, and I feel really proud to say I'm part of that. My relationship with the club hasn't been brilliant for the past few years, because I was really frustrated by the way it was run and some of the decisions that were made. But things are on an upward trajectory again, and I just love them. Also, this is a really pathetic thing to say probably, but the kits are fantastic. So when I was a young lad and we had this beautiful Frank Graham group Skull Cup final, white Adidas, white body, green sleeves, absolutely amazing strips. So yeah, and the history of the club's brilliant as well. So many famous players from a bygone era. But even in my memory, John Collins, what a fantastic Hibs player. Andy Gorham was a keeper as well when I was first starting to watch them. So yeah, there's a deep connection with Hibs that I'm dead proud of, and my son's a big fan now. But the difficulty for him is that his granddad is just been announced this week as the new chairman of Dunfermline Football Club. So one of the few people in the world of football to go from YTS, like a trainee, to become chairman of the club. He's been the manager, he's been assistant manager, he's been a director of football, he's worked behind the scenes, and now he's the chairman of the club. So he's always trying to persuade my son to change his allegiance, but he won't do it. But it's a special club. I
think it's very eloquently put, as I would have expected from you, Gordon. I think what I take from that, Mark, is that, again, I've mentioned this phrase before, that some things in football change and lots of things don't, and that's one of the things it doesn't. Is that ultimately your connection with your football club, and I don't think that will ever change. And before I ask you about Newcastle, I was just going to say that for me, it's about very, very simple. Is that we all have times in our life when things are difficult and we worry about stuff. It might be about money, or it might be about your family, or it might be about health, or it might be about relationships. Okay, and we can get kind of buried in stuff that troubles us. And then you watch your team play. And for that 90 minutes, or for however long it is these days, 110 minutes, for me, that stuff disappears. And all I can think about for that 90 minutes is what's happening to my team. The only other thing in my life that does that to me, because I have to say that when I'm troubled about something, I can have conversations with people that I know I'm not concentrating on. I can do work that I know I'm not properly focused on. But when I'm watching my team, it goes. And the other thing that takes me away like that is when I play golf. Because when I play golf, I can't think of anything other than the next shot and whether it can be any less terrible than the one that's preceded it. But for you, Mark, is there a bit of that watching Newcastle that just takes you into another place?
It's a weird one, because I think you get so many roller coasters of emotions. Like if I look back at the game against Liverpool, I'm sitting in a barn with 1-0 down. Straight after half time, we'll go 2-0 down. We're down to 10 men. I'm automatically thinking we're going to get beat. 3-0, 4-0. And then to get back to 2-2, the emotions are so high. And then to see that goal go in at the end, my daughter said to us hours later, you haven't spoke. I was in such a bad mood. It was like I was on such a high and I could have drank more Guinness to walking out the pub when the goal scored. And Mia's gone, Dad, the game isn't finished. Let's go now. Because I knew the game was over, even though there was still maybe 2-3 minutes left. I walked out and she was like, you never spoke for hours. I didn't want her to speak. I was in such a bad mood because of that goal. And I can imagine everybody around the world feels the same, isn't it? It's like, but your club, even though, like, for example, a high last year of the League Cup, winning that Carabao Cup final was such a high. You get your lows, but you know what? The next day, and I always say this, and you know, we love football, but it is only football. It's not life and death. Yeah, it's important.
Well, it's like,
you know, you want your team to do well.
Those moments when you have a moment like that, a last minute winner that goes against you, you do absolutely feel as if you'll never get over it. Don't you? You do though. But you feel like you'll never get over it.
You know what was the worst thing? It was that little cocky American on the bar just smiling at us as I was leaving the bar, and I'm thinking, don't smile at me anymore.
It's a funny thing though, like, you know, going back to my son, the only other thing that compares to it was I went to see Oasis with him.
Yeah, music.
And I was,
yeah.
And I was 15 when I saw Oasis for the first time. And actually, my dad took me to see my first proper gig when I was 14. I went to see Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, and that was a really special moment for me and my dad. It was magic. But then taking my son, who was 15, to see Oasis for the first time, wearing my clothes from 1995, listening to the music that I was listening to when I was 15 was just epic. And again, having him as a 6-year-old at Hampden when we won the Scottish Cup, I mean, that is, as the kids call it now, core memory stuff, isn't it? Really core memory. And you can't unpick that once it's done.
And also, because we've all got to remember that the majority of teams that people support never win anything. Because obviously, as we know, the same teams tend to win stuff, really. So the majority of people who support football teams go through their lives without them winning anything.
Your dream, it's a dream, isn't it? It's a dream, isn't it? Everybody has that dream. And I think, look at Leicester. I can remember them years ago. What made that huge, it was just an emotional roller coaster. To see Leicester win the title was just incredible. And that's what people dream about. The dream that they can break that top 6 or whatever, to dream that they can actually win a final or win a league.
It takes you away from stuff. I mean, you know, my mum's been really, really poorly recently, and I went to see, and my dad's really been going through the ringer with it. And I went to see my dad at the weekend before I went to see my mum. And one of the first things I said to Dad was Burnley have won, because I knew that he wouldn't know because he'd had his head in you know, all the more important stuff. Burnley had beaten Sunderland. I said, Burnley have won. And for that next 2 or 3 minutes, everything was bright, and we just talked about Burnley for 3 minutes, and then we got back to the other stuff.
What a great result. What a great result for Burnley. Absolutely, that's all I'll say on them. Great result.
Mark, to finish again, if we want to sponsor you, or if Wickes Trade Pro would like to put a leaf blower into your...
that would be well received. The leaf blower is more important at the moment.
Could we use a leaf blower to blow you around the 13.1 miles of the Great North Run? That help? Do you want me to walk behind you?
Just get one of them backpacks, that's
motorised. How do we sponsor you, Mark?
Go on. I think there's a link. I'll put a link. I think we'll get a link out somehow. And if people can, even if they just support us emotionally around, what I think I remember quickly about the Great North Run, why I loved the Great North Run was there was so many people on the sides of the roads, and I must have ate 6 cupcakes before I got past halfway. People are making food as you're running, and it's just
a wonderful thing.
It's a wonderful thing.
Magic. Well, best of luck with the training, and as Ian says, don't do too much. Don't do too much. Right, boys, that's it for us. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week with another instalment. Over to you, Mark Clattenburg. Please blow the full-time whistle.
If you want to watch more episodes of Whistleblowers, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll keep you up to date all the way through the summer with everything that's happening in the world of football.